Still everyone. So yeah, so we are very happy to have a special guest here in our the Wheel of Dharma podcast, and thank you so much for giving your precious time. And we are very excited to hear your new quotation from you. So before we begin our podcast, so first could you introduce yourself?
Jamengla, thank you for this opportunity. Hello, everyone. I'm Deepa, and I'm from Himachal Pradesh. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity, Jamengla.
Hello, um, hello everyone. I'm Shreya, and the first day I would like to thank Jamengla for hosting us. Yeah, I'm just a student and excited to answer the questions that Jamengla will ask.
Okay. So okay, thank you for your brief introduction. Now my first question. So I usually used to do my podcast, especially with the quotation. I think we all have our own, favorite quotes. So what is your favorite Buddhist quote? So could you share that one? The favorite Buddhist quote.
Well, my favorite Buddhist quote has always been be the master of your own mind. And yeah, this is the
Okay,
one.
thank you.
So my favorite Buddhist quote would be a lamp unto yourself. Yeah, that's something that I recall quite often.
Could you briefly explain that quote?
Um, for me, I think it's well, why I resonate with that quote is because um, I feel like there's so many times we tend to think that it's our own. We do not have the capability to sort of be our own refuge, or like we have the guiding light within us to sort of just like leap forward. And so many times we tend to doubt that, and even Buddha has said that you keep applying the teachings that he has taught. And in times when you feel like you do not have that sort of control over your own self, or just like when you are filled with doubts about almost everything, and then you realize that you can like rely on yourself, you can actually like guide your own path. And I think that is very much needed in times like these, when there's so much self-doubt. And I find it very relevant because of that.
Okay, thank you so much.
So, little bit about this quote. What it means to me is always about this. Since childhood, I've always been caught up with emotions a lot, and so the cycle of emotions has really dragged me down, and then I always wanted out, and I always wanted a solution to come out, or I couldn't understand what is it. So when I heard this quote, I had this curiosity, like what does it mean to master your own mind. And then I started inquiring, and then I thought, like, only if we could get um, either get rid of these emotions or somehow be able to control it, we will have much more happier lives. And all I wanted was comfort and happiness in the beginning. And but as I understood how it can really, like, um, you are sensitive, which is a very good thing. Each and everything affects you. And that's why this code could work, because it showed the possibility that you can, first thing, like when you say some when you tell when you hear, be the master of your own mind. But how? So there is how aspect, and there is step by step how aspect and practice. So by practicing you can attain this, and you can get rid of your afflictions and emotions, and much more than that. And there is I was particularly interested in the path of no more meditation, because I was not able to meditate in the beginning, and I thought, like, okay, the path of no more meditation, oh, that means I will not need meditation anymore. So it is a lot, it is a lot to explain about this quote. Is really, it has so much meaning, so much deeper meaning, and at each step I think it changes, because it is about your own capability in the worldly sense, and then you go through the ego, what is there, how you are, how you recognize things. First, to be the master, you need to know what you need, what is there to be the master of, knowing your own mind. And there is just the whole entire chapter of life, the entire life which is within this quote. So I don't know, there's a lot of things that you can talk about, but the main thing was the most important thing, which comes in the functional reality, how functionally you can live in this world well, by being the master of your own mind. And then you can also do it for help others understand that this is possible, this is very much possible, and you can do it. So be the master of your own mind gives me a lot of confidence that, yeah, I can do this.
Okay. Thank you so much. So my next question is, so when we talk about the anger, so as we all know, it's very difficult to face anger. So when you encounter with the anger, so how do you deal with the anger?
Well, thank you for this question, because like as you were sort of speaking about it, I just got like I think like lately I don't know, like anger is something that is deemed as a negative emotions, and like just living life in general, I think we encounter anger quite a lot. um but lately I've had this like really I don't know, it's an understanding I've come up come about, which is that anger is good if you are aware of it. And like before, like I'd like to think like now I'm more aware of my anger, but before this I feel like I was not aware of the anger, and how I channeled this anger would create a lot of suffering for myself and other people. But now that I've like sort of been able to understand my own emotions, and I have been able to sort of gain an awareness whenever I'm angry, I feel like the harm is less. By no means I perfect, and obviously like anger is such an intense emotion, and it just comes up like it's just like, and just by being aware, I think like I could um absolve of so much harm to myself and other people. And I also no longer think that it's a bad emotion, uh, because like in Buddhism there are wrathful deities, and it's all about how you channel your anger into something productive and into something that benefits yourself and other people. I mean, it's like it's something I aspire to be, but I don't think like I am perfect. But yeah, that is how I.
Thank you.
Sometimes I scream, and sometimes I'm not able to control it. But yes, as I'm expressing, and my body is, like, there is something that happens in the body when you're angry. At that time I realize that, I need to slow down. And it comes it has come after a lot of practice, I think. Not necessarily good practice, but just that I'm still like struggling with it. Like, I get angry a lot, and I get upset about um, getting angry. And because sometimes I, like she said, it's almost it's considered a negative emotion, and which I don't think it is. Like, sometimes, but I think all of it, for me, I'm always continuously reminded that, there is something that has hurt me, and why it has hurt me is because then yeah, it's considered a negative emotion, no? So it sometimes when it happens, when it happens, it's mostly I've realized, like I've observed that when I'm hurt about, I'm upset about something, that's the time when anger comes, anger, frustration, and everything together. And because I want something, and then I realize, if I am not able to um, realize this, how will those who don't read about it or don't know that this is a emotion that you can be aware of and then you can change all that, it actually honestly doesn't work, because sometimes, but you do realize, I mean, only thing is awareness that really helps. And then I start feeling bad about I'm getting angry, and then slowly, and then I take step to change it, like I divert my attention and I try to calm down, sometimes breathe. But it's a lot actually, because sometimes there is a lot of build up. So there's always, from the perspective of the practice, I always go down, with like you know go away from that place and go to a place where I can just sit quietly. That really helps me, and sometimes crying also helps a lot actually. And then um, sometimes it is just that awareness.
So some people they say, so when they face when they face anger, so they used to sleep. So whatever do you,
Um,
some they used to sleep,
Tripati, do you want to answer that?
I don't sleep when I feel angry, but I want to be alone at that time. When
Okay.
I'm angry, I want to be alone. I don't want, because I feel like it. My actions has the potential to harm someone at that time. So I want to not do that. So I want to be away and alone. But I think there is a this whole cycle that comes to the mind at that time, because I always am reminded, these are the 12 interdependent links. And then all the philosophy, just studying never works for me. For me, it's always going to be like, uh, you know um, I need to be more kind, and kind to myself, and also kind to the person who I think have caused, but it's actually not the other person. The cause is somewhere, like within me. I'm clinging so much that I want this, and I'm not just thinking all these things. And then um, for some time just sitting, going away, that is the pacification. But then I always, like, there is one thing, that technique which I heard from my guru. He said that when you're angry, or whatever negative emotions you have, you can always pray to Guru Rinpoche, and you can say, may no one else experience this. And from the worldly perspective, it all exists for us. Like, there's pain, there's hurt, there's anger, there's all sorts of negative emotions. But how, when we relate it with our own mind and the practice and the techniques given in Buddhism, it really has the practical benefits. It's really not for, of course, practitioners don't do it for benefit, but it's to observe our own mind, to be mindful and aware. And that's when it helps, I think. Ultimately it comes down to awareness. And what are the we don't think about the consequences at that time, right? It's like it happens in the heat of the moment, and then we are like so angry at someone. In the family it happens, right, a lot, because you don't agree, and you're living with someone. In the relationship where our, it's never going to happen that both the partners, or in the family, they will have the similar opinion and they will agree to everything. That's not going to happen. But how we live with it, knowing ourselves, knowing our emotions, knowing our, being aware of whatever we are going through, we can very well, I mean, be the master of our own minds. And then that really helps, the awareness aspect of it, by practicing whatever the Buddha taught. I think it really has um, shown the path to control whatever emotions, not control, that's not the right word actually, to
Deal.
deal with anger.
So my next question is, what is your favorite book and what book could you recommend to others?
Um, I mean, I have a lot of favorite books because I was in English literature, like undergrad. So like,
Something like
But
what
Yeah,
changed
yeah,
your
yeah.
life?
Change.
Which book had
um
great influence on you?
well, I feel like a lot of the audiences would be aware about this book, but something that has been very impactful read in my life is definitely Siddharth by Herman Hayes. um I mean, it's I can I brief a little about what the book is
Yeah, sure,
about.
sure.
So it's basically a parallel life of Siddhartha that runs along in Herman Hesse's universe. Like it's during the time of the Buddha, but Siddharth lives his own life, which is completely different from Buddha Shakyamuni, and he sort of like um, he's the Siddhartha that didn't renounce the worldly life, but then somehow, like his journey is still spiritual, and later on he stumbles upon a fisherman in like he is a he encounters a river, and then he realizes like it's sometimes spirituality can be just like being like a river, which is like just flowing through the ebbs and flows of life. And I don't know, I've encountered this book when I was 16, and then that was also a time when I was going through quite turbulent times. I mean, it's like a peak adolescence. Like I'm a teenager who is like, it's a peak teenage age. So I have encountered it then, and it changed my life because um, well, I shaved my head, and like I almost ended up in a nunnery. And then later on it didn't happen because some force like sort of I don't I, it's too personal, but like some force like it held me back from actually going to the nunnery. And I feel like quite much like Siddhartha in that book, it just I think I had to live a worldly life, because then I don't know what would happen if I did end up in a nunnery. But then I did eventually embrace spirituality, or I don't know, like um so it has that this book has almost become a blueprint of my life somehow. So I think like um a lot of people would already know about this book, but yeah, that was something that was impactful, and I think a lot of those who haven't read might really enjoy, because it
Thank you so
yeah.
much.
I have two books. Actually, when I was not following the Buddha, before that, someone had showed me a book named Dakini Teachings, and you know, I was particularly interested since childhood. I've been interested in magical aspects of, you know, everything. So I wanted to learn magic, somehow. And then some, how when with new age kind of stuff, you always find that magical. Oh, I must be lucky. Oh, I did this, and there's a cause. I must be special, and all that. So like that, one of my senior in my where I used to work, she showed me this book, and then she asked me to open a page, and she said, whatever is said in this book, it really changes your life. So I opened the page, and it was the instructions on something I don't remember, but at that time it was very important to me, and at that time it basically encouraged me to think the way I'm thinking. And so I became more curious, like, if I'm thinking, then I will go and I will choose something. So I went to this bookstore in Kolkata, and there I saw the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. That was the first book that I bought, and I read that book. And whatever was there, I was like so amazed that such things happen in today's world. And I became very curious about, because it was also written that about bodhicitta. And before that, I used to think that yeah, people who I was very certain that I will attain moksha since childhood. I was very confident because I thought like, I will attain moksha just like that. But there were a lot of things that happened, and then so I used to include and exclude people from my list. Who going to take with me after I attain moksha. So I included my parents, my siblings, and friends, and then some
Relatives.
animals, yeah, relatives, and but then some days I would fight with them, and I will not like them, so I will remove them from the list. So like that,
Okay.
after reading the book, after reading about Bodhicitta, then I thought, the possibility of including everyone, even when the mind of awakening, that was something that I thought, okay, even if I don't like them, I can do this. Like, I don't have to meet with them, I don't have to be with them, and then I can still do it. And Bodhicitta, at the time I didn't understand much, but whatever I understood, I thought what I liked was the possibility, the way that book explained each phase, even the attaining the rainbow body and all those steps, that Sogyal Rinpoche explained was really the most influential during that time before I came into Buddhism. And of course, after coming to Buddhism, what makes you not a Buddhist was the first book that I read. And yeah, after that many books, but then that book then explained, because there is this parameter we always want to know, because I was very moralistically motivated, and I always wanted someone to tell me, oh, you're doing right, or you're doing wrong, and this is not right, this is not wrong. So that kind of attitude, what makes you not a Buddhist, clarified a lot of things. And the second point, like the second seal, which was very, very influential, was all emotions are pain. I thought, "Yeah, see, I knew it." All emotions are pain. And they are like, how they are pain, um, how the author has described how all emotions are pain. It's not that because it's also curious, the curiosity that comes with this, when you read this, how, and then logically how he has explained so simply. Anyone who reads about the emotions, because emotions has been the root of my suffering. I must say, like, of course everyone's suffering, everyone has different version of their explanation of about their suffering, but the all pervasive conditioning and all that, from, if you relate in the practical life, how we deal with the emotions, we don't have everything right, but to be aware of our own emotions and recognize, even after you recognize the emotions, what are you going to do about it. And then with the knowledge of this book, it really helped me understand. And then, oh, there is no end to it. And after that, the tree of enlightenment, words of my perfect teacher, then the practice, the explanations, so many other things. But I think these two books I would recommend: the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and What Makes You Not a Buddhist,
And the first book was. And
Dakini Teachings.
okay, Takini
that
teachings.
that is little bit, I must say, I think at that time got it, like, I really read it, I think I read it twice. But I don't know what I understood, I don't remember. But it was something that really pushed me, towards the towards understanding. Like, it was like, as if it opened the door for me. It was the very first book, the encounter, the very first book, and I was very impressed. I also then came to know that there was this Buddhist practitioner, the Dakini from Himachal, and I was very impressed by that. She was the princess of
Oh,
Mandi,
Mindarava. Mindarava.
Mandarava. And I was very impressed, like, how can that be, like, how can someone from Himachal practice this.
So now my last question is: so why do you admire Buddha and his path?
I had to add one thing for
Okay, okay, sure.
the same thing, because while Deepa Didi was saying about the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, I didn't read the version I think Sogyal Rinpoche wrote, but I encountered this other book, which is, I don't know it. Yeah, Tibetan Book of the Dead. I think there also I learned a lot about like anger in general. I mean, it's a very dense. Like for me, it was quite like. Um, I think you need a certain kind of a language, like an understanding to read it. But like I remember this teaching on anger. So like how I think even Khyentse Rinpoche has a teaching about the six realms. Like I encountered it like 2 days ago, I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
about the
Please.
six realms and how the realms that people think it's like underneath the ground
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like
yeah.
up above, but we go through these six realms
In our daily life,
every
right?
day,
Every day.
like,
Yeah.
and I think I might be wrong, I don't know, but like it's something very similar
Yeah,
is
yeah.
also there in the Tibetan Book of Dead, and it's the kind of like the environment that you sort of experience is, it's the internal environment that is being projected at you, and that sort of really changed the way I perceived reality. And it was also like, um well, you can also kind of manipulate it and say that, oh, like, I'm facing all these problems because the problem is me, although like there is, I think, benefit to thinking that, but for me it was quite detrimental. And the way I sort of like tried to understand this own thinking was that I could take charge of how I actually perceive reality. And it's all about uh, I feel like just this non-dualistic understanding of reality, I feel like is an ultimate um, state of enlightenment. I'm not too sure, but like I think it's just the kind of understanding because um, that you like perceive the teachings also changes um, a lot with how you experience and how you sort of like try to transcend day to day experiences. And yeah, that's, I was going to tie it with anger, and yeah,
Now,
so
my last
that's one
question,
book.
why do you
Sorry,
admire? Yeah. Yes.
tangential.
Yeah, yeah. Why do you admire Buddha and his path?
Well, I mean, there is a lot of reasons why I admire the Buddha, and one of them is just his ability to renounce everything, because I think it's really difficult to let go of anything. And like when you see it in a very like plainly, like even I had this thought before that, oh, he left his wife and child, like there's nothing like really great about that, because so many women have been historically abandoned by their partners, and is it really? But then when I got to know deeply about it, and like this kind of like when I first uh, uh, was able to do my like Char Dham, Buddhist Char Dham. It was in Bodh Gaya, and one of the gurus that I was fortunate enough to go with, he said that if he hadn't gone, like if he hadn't, again, he's also known as like thus gone, like but if he hadn't chosen the path, then I don't know if like we would be sitting here even uh just talking about like him, and just talk like the dharma wouldn't have, we none of the beings would ever realize the true dharma, which is just the kind of path that he walked and the teachings that he gave. It was just like we are very fortunate to be born in this world where we know the Buddha, and I think that's all that it has made all the difference, like for not just me but so many beings throughout, like aeons. I don't know, like yeah, that is um because like it is an inevitable truth. I think Deepa Didi has also said that every emotion leads to suffering, and we might be happy today, but then like just the nature of samsara, as I have learned and I've I've known, like from the teachings of many many masters, like once you're happy, then like sad emotions follow, right? So there is no end to the suffering unless you know the nature of reality, and that's the path that Buddha showed to all beings. And I do not know whether there is any more like sublime teachings than that, which is that everything leads to suffering, and there is a path for to sort of like not go through this suffering, and we can actually walk that path, and that is the path that Buddha walked, and hence we are here. So that's why I admire the path of the Buddha.
So, what I admire about Gautama Buddha and his path, I think, as someone who showed the liberation, you know, sorry, I always wanted um, freedom to you know I didn't know what, but there was this something, and knowing, for as a woman in India, especially in the settings that I was in the village settings, there was this craving to know what I don't know. And I didn't know what it was, but there was something which always kept me aloof. I had i had no friends, actually, not because there were no people, there were no children around me, but because I was into my own world, and I was always thinking, most of the time relating it, you know the world was really different. It was like a complex thing, and there was something that thought, like, is there anything beyond this? Is there anything that I don't know? And there was always this curiosity, the question, and whatever was happening. And I always used to think that maybe whatever I'm thinking is just wrong, because nobody thinks like this around me. So I never had that confidence to in my own thoughts, that there is something beyond this. And when I read about what Buddha did, and what Buddha taught, and the path, bodhicitta, and what he discovered, and then I just came to realize that it is so simple. Like, it is, he simply presented everything, and the kind of struggles that he went through, how much he must be tormented with the suffering, like, and he was not just with his own suffering. He didn't have that much suffering, he had all the privileges. Even then, in spite of all the privileges, in spite of everything provided by his parents, and he had everything, still he was feeling it for others. The element of compassion, that selfless compassion, and the that craving to, usually we think that, how can I be free of suffering, but he thought for others, like, how can I find the cure for this suffering for others. He wanted to liberate his parents, his wife, his son, everyone around him, and that was his main motivation. So to reach that level, first of all, we are nowhere there in but he then gave the possibility, by giving the path, that anyone and everyone can achieve this if they follow this. And with his path, I think, he simply, just discarded everything. Like, he basically, he gave the validation. Buddha's path gave me a validation that whatever I'm thinking about, what is there beyond this, what is the reality, because it keeps changing. People you love, people who love you, they keep changing. Like, I always used to think, I had this complaint, I wanted permanent love in life. And I always used to think objectively, like, there will be someone who will love me permanently, like, they will not get angry. So I always had these expectations from my parents, that they will love me, and they love me. But then when they used to get angry and beat me up for something, I used to think, like, their love is not permanent. So I need to find
Yeah.
permanent love. And I mean,
Yeah.
where is it? I used to get really sad because that
Yeah.
was really disturbing for me. How can someone who love you can get angry at you? My expectations and all those things I understood much later. But what the Buddha taught, how everything springs from your own mind, and how emotions, and how these afflictions they work, and how you can come out of it, how you can realize the wisdom and work towards it, and not just for yourself. For we have no way of helping anyone unless they follow the path, right? But Buddha gave so many ways where you can do it, and then you can help others do it by not just, like, not just like magically, but by doing so many things for them. And it is really, I don't think anyone else can do this, but to be able to feel that level of compassion, that is my most admiration. The point that I admire the most about Buddha is the level of compassion that he had. It was the perfect compassion, and he knew everything. He had the perfect knowledge, and he loved everyone, and he had the power to do so many miracles, but he still did not. He gave the importance to the truth. And for me, I think that was the, not the kind of nirvana liberation, but this itself, that how reality appears and how we see it, it depends on our view. And that to me was the most important point, and that was kind of a big liberation and big relief for me, that oh no, whatever I'm seeing, whatever I'm thinking is not wrong. Buddha buddha's teachings validate what but there is, like, beyond, when you go, like, you have nothing to find, like when you go finding, you're always finding, all that, everything is just, like, collected, and then you appear as I. So there is whatever you find, you can never cling when you follow the Buddha, and it can never cause you suffering, because you go to the root of it, and then once you discover it, it really changes your life, and it makes it so much easy, and it frees you from so many unnecessary things in life. Very economical and everything, it benefits you from all, at all levels. The Buddha's path is the complete path. Even a person like me, who knew nothing, and just by following some steps, just by following the path, I feel like, I'm not enlightened, but I know at least that, um, I can do this, and I have so much confidence, because he said anyone can do it. And if a person like me, coming from wherever, like, that disturbed mind and all those emotions, and not able to control, not able to live a good life, it's not just about life, but whatever Buddha taught, it makes so many things, like in the HD view, so many things clear, and to notice and live with that awareness. And it's not the happiness, but there is, like, there's not one particular emotion that you depend on, but even without having all the facilities, all the comfort and everything, life is still very good. And it's like, it's the immense satisfaction with the dissatisfaction. That part, I think, I love the most. And uncertainty doesn't come as a surprise, and impermanence, accepting that, whatever it is just so practical, everyday life, the challenges and everything that is there in life, it is just, he made it so easy. He made the life so easy, and it's not complicated. It's just so simple. You just see the truth, and that is it, and the rest, everything will go around. And it is just so much what do you say, how do you say, like, it's like the unexpressed happiness. And I think this is the only reason that I can laugh, like, very lightly. And it's, I don't know, I feel very light. And it is, he took, Buddha's path has taken the burden of whatever was here. So I think I admire Buddha and Buddha's path for so many other reasons. There are so many details, but I think for this,
Okay.
this is enough.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So I forgot one question to ask. So
Yes.
this is something like assumption. Okay. So let's say, so in this degenerated time, so in case if you face Buddha, so what blessing would you ask for? Did you get the question?
Yes.
So what blessing
Well,
would you ask?
with this habitual pattern of self clinging and ego, my first thought was, oh, I would just ask him to liberate me. But I know that it's not possible, and he has said that no one, not even I, can liberate you, but you
Yeah.
can only liberate yourself. um well, Buddha has also, I think I've read that if you think that you've seen me, then you've not seen me. So I don't think.
Baca Rachita ya sutra ya. Very
Yeah,
interesting one.
so
Okay,
I
yeah.
would be a little bit doubtful because I think I've read that. So I would be a little bit like, hey, you couldn't be the Buddha because you would not appear if you would. So yeah, that is.
Yeah, thank you so much, madam.
I would, um, I would say, like, I take it the other way around. I take it like everyone is the Buddha, and it's just that they don't know it. So, and for that, if I see the Buddha, actually, I asked this question to my guru. It was in the very beginning. I asked him, I heard that there is a shortcut to enlightenment,
Okay, searching for the shortcut.
and because I wanted shortcut, and I asked him, "Can you teach me that?" And he said, "Yes." But then after that, there was a long silence. so, so I thought like, oh, it will come, it will come, it will come, and then now after so many years, I think. I was only interested in enlightenment. There was nothing else. So if I see the Buddha, I know if I what I want. I want enlightenment. So I'm only my perception of enlightenment. But now how I see it is, I will ask the Buddha the blessing to maintain the view of truth all the time,
Wow.
and that's it.
Okay.
And then if I'm able to maintain that, nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Very tactfully, Deepadi
Like
answered the question.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, right view.
yeah, right view. Where our Rinpoche here, every time used to remind us, right? This one, seeing the truth, about the truth, right? So yeah, I think we can conclude here up here this much, right? And
I think
okay,
it's also
yeah,
the hardest thing to hold the
yeah,
right view.
okay,
And I think that is why it's been like focused so much,
yeah, yeah,
because we I really are the people of the degenerate times, beings of the degenerate times. The moment we get something that sort of like um, catches our fancy, we will go with that, not with the truth. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you so much for giving your precious time
thank you so much, Jamengla.
and your wisdom, and hope this wisdom will benefit all the viewers. And see you in the next video. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Okay, cameraman, bye.